Hi everyone, welcome to a quick demo of the I think it's a Jira app. What we're going to be running through today is a quick walkthrough of how to create an application inside Jira software using AppNaker for Jira. AppNaker for Jira is a solution built by Product Forge, which is about a lot of marketplace app in a marketplace. The goal of AppNaker for Jira is to kind of bridge the gap between tools like automation for Jira, which allows you to automate backend processes, versus something like Forge, which allows you to write your own front-end capabilities and features as code, like you would if you're building a separate web app. Where AppNaker for Jira comes in is it bridges the gap between those two things, allowing you to extend the front end of Jira, allowing you to store and manage complex data in Jira in a way that isn't constrained to the setups and schemas or automation for Jira that doesn't require you to write code like you would do if you're using something like Forge. So to give you a quick example of what you can do with this, what you see on the screen is a screenshot of a dashboard that we can create in Jira software using I think of the Jira. And this is what we'll be creating today as part of the summer video. This dashboard specifically is designed to show the users of the particular Jira project a list of any opening pull requests from Bitbucket Git repositories that are associated with this Jira project. So if you're in Jira project and maybe you're working on some code that's in Bitbucket or GitHub, you can have a dashboard in Jira which shows you all the open pull requests against those repositories. And this would be a really valuable teacher for teams because it means they can keep an eye on those repositories and there's any pull requests they need to review, but having to leave their workflow in Jira software. Now, obviously, if you're watching this, you're probably not actually a software team. You might be a team working on the more like operational role. But the key idea here is that this type of dashboard can be used for basically anything where you want to monitor data from an external system. So, for example, these could be invoices. These could be bookings in a booking system. These could be support tickets on the support management system. It could be literally anything. The main thing to understand is what AppMacro allows you to do is create your own front-end apps, so like dashboards and widgets and anything else you can think of. And then it also allows you to push data from external systems, so GitHub or your CRM system or a booking system, store that data inside Jira in the AppNaker for Jira app itself, and then show that data in the UI. So basically, you're able to create full stack apps inside Jira. You are able to do it in a way that doesn't require you to write your own code or build your own APIs. I'm going to walk through how to do that today. So we're going to go through a high-level overview of how this will work, and we're going to go over some concepts and AppNaker for Jira to explain it. So we're actually going to work backwards. We're going to start from an end state and then work backwards to explain how we get to that end state. So the end state is this dashboard we see here. So you see there's this custom apps tab on the side, and in that there's this view. You see here, this is the pull request tab here. If we had other custom apps installed into this Jira project, each of them would be associated with a different tab along the shock one here. Right now, we only have one. So those UI apps that we talk about there, we refer to them as custom apps, and they are built entirely with AppNaker for Jira. For all you need to do to create your own custom app, which gets into UI, if basically have a piece of JSON. So you do need to be somewhat familiar with JSON as a concept to work with this. So you have a blob of JSON, and that JSON represents the app that you want to create. And you basically save that JSON into AppNaker, and we convert that into a fully built out UI with custom components, dynamic content, and all kinds of stuff. So that's what we call a custom app. That's the front end, that's the UI. Now, you'll see in the dashboard, though, that inside that app, there's actually this table. And the table represents all of their pull requests that we want to show inside the dashboard. In that table, there's multiple pieces of data, and each row represents a separate pull request. So this table is dynamic. It will show different content based on the state of the external system. It's not static. You can create totally static UI widgets with AppNaker, but that's not really what's the valuable part of it. Static widgets are not the most useful thing in the world because you want that data inside the widgets to be dynamic and update in real time. So in order to get the data in this list to be dynamic, we need to utilize a second feature of AppNaker. And that is something that we call a data list. So AppNaker is able to store data inside your Jira side, kind of similar to if you think about custom fields from Jira, but it is also a different. So it's not actually utilizing custom fields. It's using our own form of data storage. And there are two types of data storage in Maker. One is called a data list, and one is just called custom data. The difference between those two is that a data list is designed to store multiple separate records where each record is of a similar shape. So when I say that, I mean it would be multiple pull requests or multiple bookings or multiple invoices. And you can have as many different data lists if you like, but each of them should store data that is relatively the same shape. Because what you're going to do is you're going to pass that data list to your custom app at the front end and tell your front end, hey, I want you to show one row in a table for each item in this list, or I want you to render one UI widget for each item in this list. So that's how that will work. So we have this data list concept, and what we need to do then is we need to get the pull request data from Bitbucket in this instance into the data list so that there is one item in the data list for each open pull request inside Bitbucket Cloud. All right, introducing the third concept, the last concept you need to understand for this demo, Maker, it ends the concept of what we call a webhook transform. Now, that might sound complicated, but if you're familiar with what a webhook is, the name webhook transform is pretty self-explanatory. Basically, a webhook transform allows you to receive a webhook from an external system and transform the data that they send you into a different shape. Now, if you're familiar with working with webhooks, you will have run into this problem of apps have APIs which allow you to push data into them and pull data out of them. But those APIs expect the data that you push and pull to be in a particular shape. Apps also have webhooks, which allow you to send data from them when certain events happen. And the data that's in those webhooks is also in a particular shape. But the difference is those two shapes are never the same. If you're trying to get data from your CRM into, say, Jira Service Management, the data that your CRM sends from its webhooks is not the same shape as the data that Jira Service Management wants in order to store something like a ticket in Jira Service Management. This is where the concept of webhook transforms comes in. A webhook transform is a way for you to easily take any webhook payload that you receive from a third-party system or an external system and transform it into the shape you want it to be in. And in this case, it's going to be the shape we want to have the data when we're displaying it in the table in custom app. So with that, for two separate webhook transforms. One is for whenever a pull request is created or updated, and one is for whenever a pull request is closed or merged. What will happen is when a pull request is created or updated, Bitbucket will fire a webhook which will run this webhook transform, and the webhook transform will run an operation in its data list to do like, hey, this pull request which I've just been sent, I'm going to shape it put into the shape that you need for this data list, and I want you to add this to a list. Now, the list is intelligent. The list will look at that object and say, well, actually, I've already got something in my list. It has the same ID as the one you're trying to tell me to add. So I'm not going to create another one. I'm just going to update the old one that has the same ID. And I'm going to assume that means what you're trying to do is you're actually just trying to update the items already in here, and you'll be able to specify what property on the object is the ID as part of the webhook transform. So we do a lot of things in that Maker to make all these processes seamless, and this is a good example of that. You don't need to manage the difference between when a pull request is created or a pull request is updated. We can do that automatically. All you need to do is say, hey, when there's new data about the pull request, add it to this list, and the list will be smart enough to go, well, I already have one of these. I'm just going to update the old one. All you're also going to do is say that whenever a pull request is closed or merged, you want to run a different webhook transform. And the reason this is different is because what you're actually trying to do here is a completely different operation. So up here, you're trying to add that data into the list. Down here, you want to remove it because your pull request is now closed or merged. So when this event fires, you want to run a different operation, and you want to tell the list, hey, get the item in your list with this particular ID and remove it from the list, which means that it'll also get removed from the UI. So just to recap, we have a UI that's going to take some data that's stored in that list. The data is going to get into that list by either being added by one webhook transform or being removed by another webhook transform. And these two webhook transforms are going to be run based on data being sent from our Bitbucket Cloud or GitHub site. All right, so they've actually got it. So the first thing you need to do in anything like this is you need to create the webhook transforms first. The reason you need to do that first is because each webhook transform has a unique URL that you need to configure the webhook from the external system to fire at. So there'll be a URL for this one, and there'll be a URL for this one. So what a webhook transform actually is, if you think about it, if you're a bit more familiar with APIs, is you're basically creating your own custom API that can take whatever shape of data that you need it to, and then reform it into the shape that it needs to be using that. The first thing we got to do is create these two webhook transforms. Now, just to set expectations, AppMaker is a very new tool, which means for us, Rock edges around certain parts of the UX. We're focusing primarily at the moment on making sure the UX for the user who is interacting with these apps as seamless as possible. And we're assuming that the people who are building these integrations are a little bit more comfortable with bit more comfortable with a rough UX. We are going to obviously improve that in the future, and probably soon. That right now, the process of creating these is a little bit manual. So just bear with us as we go through that, and we promise it'll be much smoother very soon. So today, to create these webhook transforms, you actually make an API call to an endpoint on your Jira site. Now, don't worry, you don't have to write any code or anything to this. You can just use an API, like an API request tool, gets familiar with PostNan or in something how either of those will work. There's another one as well you can use, which is just in the browser called HTTP, which is really easy to use. Basically, just lets you make a HTTP request, post request at one point. So to create the webhook transforms, you're going to go to your site, and you're going to go up to settings, and you're going to go to apps. So on the far bar, it'll be this custom apps menu item. Click into that, and then wait for the thing to load, and you'll see this admin page, and this will be on every site will have AppMaker installed, and you'll see that there's a bunch of URLs in here. And these are the URLs you use when you're creating things like UI updates or custom data or webhook transfers. In the future, this will be like some stuff you can do through the UI in the app itself. But for right now, it's just URLs in the API request too. All right. So we want to create a webhook transform. So we're going to use this update webhook transform URL. And just so everyone's clear, this is all gone through in extensive detail in our documentation. So by jumping over into the docs, which you can see here, I've got guides and then webhook transforms. We go through all of this in detail, exactly how to do this. So don't worry, you don't need to keep tabs of exactly what I'm doing here in the demo. So I'm going to grab that URL, and I'm going to jump over to my HTTP client. This could be Postman. I need to get something that will be HTTP. And we're going to go to this one here. So I've actually got this populated, and I've already got the URL as well. But basically what this is doing is it's creating the webhook transform for when a PR is updated or created. So I'll run through this really quickly, what this is doing. I'm not going to go through it in detail, though, because the quickest and easiest way, if you want to go through this in detail, would be to look at the documentation. We also have a fully documented walkthrough of this tutorial that I'm doing right now on the docs as well. So if you go to your docs and you go to examples and you open pull request dashboard, this here runs you through the example I'm giving you right now. So that being something out, we're going to create the webhook transform. So the request we make to our Jira site have an action, which is set. So we're saying basically we want to create, set this data in the system. A resource type, which is sort of defining the scope of this webhook transform. So how does it discuss the whole workspace, site? Does it exist across this particular project, or does it exist on a particular issue? Webhook transforms are always at the site level. You need to give it a title, because this is used kind of like a unique ID to a webhook transform. And so in this context, we're saying Bitbucket PR updated is the title. Now, this can be wherever you want, that does need to be unique. If you duplicate this for something else, you will actually end up overriding like another webhook transform or something like that. And then we need to have this property here, which is called transform target. Now, transform target can either be list or custom data. So what we're saying here is we're saying, remember I said before that there's two types of data you can store out. Negative is custom data, and if a list. We need to tell the webhook transform whether it's targeting a list or whether it's targeting the custom data objects, and it's context for targeting the list. And then down here, we have this transform data object and then a list of what we call field maps. So field maps are basically us telling AppMaker, hey, get the value that's in the source field from the webhook payload and add backs to a field that matches what's in the target property. So to give you a specific example, we're here. Get the value that's in the body.pullRequest.id field from the webhook payload that you receive, and store that in the list item.id field of the thing of the list item that you're going to create. So when your transform target is list, each webhook transform when it's run will operate on a single item in that list we call a list item. And so we're saying we get the value from there and store it in there in the list item. Now you'll see here that a few of these had values that are wrapped in single quotes. What the single quotes around the name is, don't look up a value from the webhook payload. Just use this exact value. So we want to set the action on the list item update that Lynette create the so-called transform. I have add. So we're saying we want to add something into the list. And that's because this webhook transform is only for when the PRs are being created and updated. We want to set it on in list, which is scoped to a particular project. So this resource type could be project, issue, or site. In its case, to be a project. And we want the project that it is scoped to have a key of AMT. So this resource key means. So we're saying the resource key for this project should be AMT. And I go back to Jira, you see here in the app the test project, the key for this project is AMT. So it's telling it only create the list to be created is scoped to just this project. And that means that the data you put into that list won't bleed over into other projects in your Jira site. So each project can have its own set of lists instead of data, instead of UI budgets. You don't need to pollute the entire site with everything. And that means that each team can create their own sets of apps. You don't need to have them across the entire site. It's really, really important capability. All right. And then we need to give we need to set title of the list that we want to add the item to. So in this context, the title of the Bitbucket PRs. So it's INAT as a literal item because it's got those single quotes around it. And then finally, we need to set a list item key. And what this means is saying, what is the property in the list item that we want to treat as the unique key for that list item? And that way we know what to look for when we're updating or deleting that entering the list. And we're saying use the ID property as the key. Now I've changed this to whatever I want. If I was storing data in the list and I had a field called title and I wanted that to be a unique, and I would just write title here instead. The reason these are all static values rather than dynamic values is because these are actually defining the properties of the list that we want to add stuff to, not the list items like an arrow into it. So the list is already kind of like static, and then the dynamic data is all going to be related to the list items, which is why you see here the target is list item dot something, list item dot something, list item dot something. So then real quick way, we're going to populate an ID field of what's item. Then you did a title, an author, status, a WIMP, comment count, task count, a name, and all of this data is in a come from either called a payload. It's on Bitbucket. So for example, it'll be body.pullRequest.title, body.pullRequest.author.displaying. And I've looked up all these values beforehand at Bitbucket webhooks, so that's why so that I'm happy to. You're not to know these in your hearts. You will need to do this necking yourself. If it's not complicated, if it's not hard, it takes maybe 10 minutes to do this, to build this app once you understand what you're doing. But so this is all populated and ready to go. I'm now going to create this webhook transform. So I'm going to hit send, and in the second, I'll get back a request as a response. Great, 200. Okay, it tells me all of the details of the webhook transform that is created. So outcome webhook transform updated. You'll always say updated, even if it's creating a brand new one. And then it gives you a context of like where it's looking to the site. It's called this. It was last updated on that timestamp. Here's all of the field mapping we're going to do out of the transform target. And now the important thing down the bottom is you have this transform URL. And this is what you're going to aim your webhook at when you're sending the data to Bitbucket. So make sure you don't lose this. Just leave this here now. And we'll come back to this in a second. And now that I've put the step in webhook transform, which is still when PRs are closed or merged, you see there's not much more because all we need to do here is specify the ID. We don't need to um, nap all the other fields into it, because this operation, all we're doing is actually removing a list item from the list, not adding something in. And then we need all of the fields, them adding something in or updating in. So when we're just deleting it, all you need to specify is the ID. So you see here, basically, everything else is exactly the same as it was from the create one, except obviously a lot less fields. The only difference is we change the title of the Webhook transform to Bitbucket PR closed, because Webhook transforms need to have a unique title. And we'll change this action from what was add before, it's now remove. And so what we're saying here is when a PR is merged or rejected, fire webhook up this webhook transform, and this webhook transform is going to remove the list item where the list item ID matches body.pullRequest.id. So they're basically just going to tell to look up the list item it made with this little transform and delete it. So it's no longer in the list. All right, so send that. And this will now be created. Great. Same as before, and then it's transform URL down there as well. It's ready to go. All right. That is by far the most complicated part of this whole process. We're actually already 2/3 of the way through building out the entire app. So I know that was a get to wrap your head around. And to be clear, webhook transforms are by far the most complicated part of that makeup. And if you can understand how they work, you know how to do everything else, and you now can build your own entire custom apps with the tool. And like I said, we're almost done now. That was by far the half time. So the next step is, now that we have our webhook transforms, we need to set up the webhooks in Bitbucket to send the data to those webhook transforms. Pretty easy. Now, this is going to be different depending on what app you're integrating it. If you're integrating like a CRM or a booking system or an invoicing system, the way that you set up webhooks on those systems is going to be completely specific to those systems. But I'm going to assume that you know how to do a webhook from the systems already. I'm just going to do it in Bitbucket here, have an example. But you'll need to do it for the system you want to get the data from. So I'm going to jump into Bitbucket, and I'm going to go down to repro, and then I'm going to do repo settings, and then give it that, and then you go down to webhooks. And you'll see you right here, already got 2 webhooks here. So I'm just going to delete those quickly. So you think of the dinner. All right, now the webhook. Going to call this PR created / updated webhook, and then needs a URL. So I'm going to go back to something, and I'm going to grab the webhook transform URL that I returned before down here. And that's going to be the URL for the webhook. Great. And then I want it to be active. I don't want it to do anything on request push. I want this to only the on pull request created and updated. So it will fire this webhook whenever a pull request is created or updated at that URL, and it's going to be in that lane. But save, great, done. And now real quickly, I'm just going to do that for the delete as well. Flash rejected. I need the URL for this one. So this is the webhook transform URL for the PR closed. Get rid of that trigger, and we're going to fire this if a PR is merged or declined. Saved. Fire. Now we add those 2 webhooks set up for each link pointing at a different URL for webhook transforms. So we now have these things created and these things created. And what you don't realize is that you also actually have this now as well. You get this for free because the data list is created automatically whenever the webhook transform ends. You can create a data list manually just by firing an API request at the create data list endpoint, and you can add data to it manually yourself, totally fine. Webhook transforms will automatically create a data list whenever you run one that targets a particular data list. So if that data list doesn't exist when the webhook transform runs, it will just create it for you automatically and then add the data into it. So because you set up these 2, you actually already have this for free. Now, what might be too confusing is you go, well, how do I use this? How do I reference this? You use the name of the data list that you put into the when you create the webhook transform. So I go back to here, PR update transform. You'll see in here we specified a title. So what this title was, this was the a data list title. So the data list is called Bitbucket PRs. Over the next few weeks, we'll be adding UI elements into the site heading for Make so you can see all of the data lists in the UI and just grab like the URLs and names and stuff. For right now, you just have to grab that title from the request there. But that'll obviously be much easier in the future once we get that to the UI. All right, so you have these. You have the left hooks, actually have lists now already. So the last step is adding it to the UI. So what we're going to do is if you install the app, make the app, you're going to have this custom apps menu item here. And if you haven't created any custom apps, this will just load an empty tab. Now, we already had a tab here that is by the pull requests dashboard, but you'll see there's no table here. It's because there's a data in the list. This is what he with. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you how to create this table now. So just like with creating webhook transforms, you create UI elements by making an API request. So you go to settings, apps, custom apps, and here you'll see there's a UI update URL. So you make a post request at that URL to update the UI. I go back to my project, custom app. I jump right in some here again. Now I am going to just quickly delete that UI dashboard so that it show you. So this is the API tool to delete the dashboard. Either here and I hard refresh, that dashboard should now be gone. The custom app's available because I deleted the dashboard. So this is now empty. So we're going to create that custom dashboard again. So I'm not going to go through the details of this again. This is all documented in our docs. You can go through it in great detail. There's the head docs for these table components for how to create UI. You can go through all that yourself. But basically what I'm saying is I want the action is set. So I want to add this UI component. It's scripts to a project with the key at AMT. You'll notice that this is the same project as the data list was scripts to. The UI custom app has a title of PR table. This can be whatever you want. It does not need to be the same as the data list. But just remember, this is what you would need to, this is your unique ID. And then you have this module thing here. So module basically is where in the UI do you want this custom app to display? So in our context, we want it to display in this full page section of the left-hand side menu. So that is called a Jira project page module. And they're actually defined by Atlassian. So there's a bunch of different modules you can use. You can use employable pages by using this guy, and it shows the modal on the whole site. You can go and you can have little sidebar widgets like this one. And you can have custom apps that show up here in the main part of the Jira issue. You can have custom apps that show up in a modal off of the Jira issue here, there, custom apps. You can have them all over the place, and we document all those on our website. We're doing it here now. So I'm going to document some now. And then downly you have the actual data set. This section here, there, that is the entire app. So literally that is all you have to have, this bit of JSON, to create this entire UI app. So this is a separate UI tab. It's got a heading. It's got a description. It's got this table. It's got these columns. It's got the data in it. All if you were to write that as code, you'd probably be a couple hundred lines of code. You'd need to render it. You need to know how to deploy it. With that maker, it's just that. It's probably, what are we looking at? Maybe 50 lines of JSON, and if there are short lines of JSON for all you need to know. And we have this templated on our website. You can just go and grab it. I'm not going to go through this in detail. Details on the website if you want to go through it. We'll also be doing more tutorial videos breaking down the stuff in more detail later on. So I'm going to hit send on that. That will now create it. Great. This has all been created, and you'll see here it does the same thing. It shows you everything that was created. Now, the one thing you do to be aware of is down here, you have this table rows company as part of this dynamic table. And you see here, it's got curly braces around it, which means that we're trying to interpolate, we're trying to inject some data into this. And you'll see here, there's the curly braces and then list colon. Therefore, this is us saying, hey, we want to inject some data into the table from a list, the data list we claimed earlier. And then we're telling it which list you want to inject, saying lists.project, which means grab one of the lists that is in the context of the project that this table is being rendered in. So because this table is being rendered in the ANT project, we only want to look at lists that are in the ANT project. And the data list we created earlier was in the ANT project. So get the lists that are script to the project, and then get the list with the title Bitbucket-PRs. Okay, to go back to here, you'll see Bitbucket-PRs was the title of the list that we used on the webhook transform. So this is how we tell AppMaker what data to pass into the list, stage of the table, to render in the UI. That's the only thing you need to. Again, detailed documentation on how that works is on our website. If you go to guides, you need to look at things like advanced dynamic content. We go through how all this works in quite extensive detail. So normally we go through webhook transforms and we go through data tables as well, how that works. So all of those here, I strongly recommend that you basically just go to the website and you start from the top once that later and just work your way through it. This is designed to be worked through start to finish. By the time you get to the end, you will know everything, how everything works. All right, so back here, we've already created that UI components. Now I'm going to go back to Jira. I'm going to hard refresh the page, and we should now have that tab back. Great. So we have tab back. It's got the heading and the description. It doesn't have a table because there's no data in the table. Have the table. Have back. So now if we jump back to the I Live diagram, we have everything. We have our UI component created. You have the data list, which is automatically created by the webhook transforms. We created both of the webhook transforms, and it's set up these two webhooks to send the data across to AppNicker whenever a pull request is created or updated. So the last thing to do is create a pull request instead. So you're going to my repo here, and then going to a file. And this, you don't need to know this part. This is just me creating a pull request. But if you were doing invoices, you create an invoice. If you were sorting bookings, you would create a booking. It can be whatever you want to be. It's going to change in here and commit that, and then touch create pull request. Now it's creating a pull request, and the pull request is now created. And we're going to give it just a couple of seconds because it does have to send the data over to AppMaker, and AppMaker needs to load it into its data storage. Take the right here, and they go hard refresh. Look, you now have a pull request in our table. So that's it. It works. That was you the whole thing. We didn't do anything manually. This was created straight away automatically by AppMaker, receiving that webhook that was sent from Bitbucket, loading that into its data storage, and then storing that in the UI. You see here had the status. My color wasn't. You can control the color based on what the text is inside this. There's no comments or tasks on here. That's fine. We get it. The author, we have the author's name here. And what's really cool is we have the repo and the PR, but these are links. So if I were to click on that, it would actually take me out to the repository where the PR came from, because that data was available in the webhook payload. So we were able to max that URL from the webhook payload into the hyperlink that's displayed in the table using the webhook transform. Similarly, for the PR, at the different URL, we were able to knock that different URL into a different column in the table using the webhook transform. So the link to the repo goes to the repo, link to the PR goes to the PR. And that was all just done by the webhook transform, telling it, hey, get the field from this style using the webhook payload and map it into this style in the list item. And then that list item was just rendered in this table with these in mix. So with this one, for example, you provide a text, a piece of text for the actual text, but then you also provide a link as well, and it adds the hyperlink in so that when you click the text, it is as a hyperlink. So real quickly, let's jump back to Bitbucket. And then let's decline this PR. We don't want to include it. Don't like it. Decline. All right, that PR has now been declined. And we'll give it a few seconds. And then refresh our dashboard. Table's empty. So again, what happened was a PR, when it was declined, webhook got fired at the AppMaker URL. Nah, it got fired at the second webhook transform. Remember, we created one webhook for merge and reject, and one webhook for create and update. So when we rejected the PR, it fired an event at the reject or merge webhook transform, and that webhook transform was set up to remove list items. So it used the ID of the PR to look up lists and remove the item from the list, and now it's no longer showing in the table. They get end-to-end full walkthrough of how to push data from an external system into AppMaker for Jira. Like I said, this doesn't have to be, GitHub or Bitbucket. It can be a booking system, an invoicing system. It can be a CRM. It can be whatever you want it to be. But push that data across to us, both the created and updated, but also when you want to delete things. So this is really important. You have both these. That's how you keep the data always up to date. You use the webhook transform to reshape the data from the webhook into whatever format you want it to be to display in the table and app maker. Those webhook transforms either add the data into a list or remove the data from a list, depending on what the operation was. You then pass that list into your UI using that templating syntax I mentioned before, Daniel. Seb, check out the docs for information on how to do that. And then once that's passed in, it's blended into the UI and showed you the most up-to-date data from the list. And we're showing you that full process end-to-end. So then I know less than half an hour and I've been talking quite a bit. So once you're up and running and you know how to use the system, you can go with things like this and, literally minutes. And most of these things, it's really important to note is that once you build them once for one customer or for one use case, you can reuse them over and over and over and over again and just change the values that you need to change. So, for example, if I wanted to create that UI, that showed that dashboard, the different Jira project, I would just reuse all of this JSON, and all I'd do is change this project key. So it's not like you're creating this stuff from scratch every time. You can reuse 95% of what you're actually creating here. And that's one of the reasons why we actually get all of these things to be created with JSON is because you can save that JSON as a template and then use it again later. Something we will be adding to the app in the future, once we have we go to create the JSON objects by the UI rather than ACL, if you also do creating like templates and stuff like that, just solve you can save and then easily will use and access later on. All right, that's it for now. I hope you found this useful and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the team, either via support ticket or you can just get in contact with us directly via our email.